U.S. President Donald Trump says 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports will be announced today.
Just so I understand,
we'll also be announcing steel tariffs on Monday.
On this tomorrow?
Monday, yeah, tomorrow.
What countries will those go on?
Everybody. Steel.
Including Canada and Mexico?
Yeah. Any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff.
What about aluminum, sir?
Aluminum, too.
His announcement came after Fox News aired a partial interview with Trump earlier Sunday, during which he said he wants to see Canada become a U.S. state.
You know, the Prime Minister said this weekend to a group of Canadian businessmen, he was a private meeting, he said that your wish for Canada to be the 51st state is a, quote, real thing. Is it a real thing?
Yeah, it is. I think Canada would be much better off being a 51st state because we lose $200 billion a year with Canada, and I'm not going to let that happen. It's too much. Why are we paying $200 billion a year essentially in subsidy to Canada? Now, if they're a 51st state, I don't mind doing it.
And while it's unclear where the $200 billion figure comes from, Statistics Canada says Canada's overall trade surplus with the U.S. was $94.4 billion in 2023, primarily due to oil exports. Concordia University's Dr. Moshe Lander joined us to explain the impact of the new tariffs and what this means for the Canadian economy.
We are the biggest supplier of aluminum and steel to the U.S. We export it in finished form, but also in raw form. And this is equivalent to going after the oil and gas sector or the auto sector. It's just one more of the major natural resources that we export to the U.S. And again, Trump's version of we could do it ourselves, you could, but you couldn't do it as well. And you couldn't do it for as low of a cost as we do it. So we're, on the one hand, he's saying he's going to control inflation and bring prices down, which is actually deflation. He can't do it at the same time that he's increasing input costs for American manufacturers. There is a contradiction here. And so even if somehow they had the capacity to replace Canadian aluminum and steel, it's not like you can just onboard it with the snap of a finger. So all of those dormant steel factories, aluminum factories across the US need to be onboarded. They need to be filled with people. Where are you going to find them when you're rounding up immigrants and sticking them on planes and sending them back where they came from? It's not like they have a surplus of labor that's hanging around. Even within the existing factories that are operational, you can't necessarily double or triple up the shifts beyond the fact that labor unions wouldn't allow for it. The factories themselves would disintegrate. They would go into overdrive and they would break down quickly and then need to go offline for extra repairs or maintenance. So there's a disconnect here again. It's merely the idea of he wants Canada's natural resources for free. And so the reason why the 51st state keeps coming up is because he's looking for the idea that somehow if we were part of the US, then they wouldn't have to pay for those resources. Never mind that, of course, they still would. It's just that the money would be going internally instead of externally. And I think that's the thing that drives him crazier than anything is somehow that he has to pay somebody else for what they have. Just take a look around you, and anything that has aluminum or steel in it is going to be essentially coming from Canada, if not Korea or some of the other major players in the market. The construction industry, of course, is top of the line. The auto industry is top of the line. Fine, you can look at the pop bottles and anything like that as well. But really, any manufactured good that has steel in it probably has some Canadian content in it as well. And so if you think about just construction and autos, that's such a huge part of the US economy. It's such a huge part of their manufacturing base that, of course, they're going to use steel and aluminum as major inputs.